guys, and welcome to my review of Haikyuu chapter 224. And what can I say? I mean, I think I was pretty spot on with my analysis of Kageyama's behavior from last chapter, so go me. But yeah, this chapter was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed seeing how they brought up the King Kageyama and how he's different and how Hinata thinks that it's really cool that Kageyama is a king. Like, that was just the last panel. I'm like looking at it right now with Hinata basically crowning Kageyama. Don't even get me started on how much I loved that. Oh my god, that was so amazing. Oh, my little heart can't take that. But yeah, let's get into like what actually happened. So we see that Kageyama is trying really hard to not just set the perfect tosses, but to also have the people whom he tosses for do his best, do their best and act to the best of their abilities. So we have again Kageyama saying to Asahi that he should be more decisive, and we have this really heartbreaking moment where he yells at him and he immediately like goes into shock. He reminded himself of how he was when he was the king of the court of Kitagawa Daiichi. And we even had Tsukishima being like, oh, this is the old king that I know and love. And that's just, because that's a person Kageyama doesn't want to be anymore. But we then have a conversation where people around him start like explaining why they're doing what they're doing. So we have Asahi saying, well, I've been trying to do this thing where I throw the blockers off with when and how I spike, but it doesn't really seem to work, but that's why I seem like I'm not being decisive because I'm doing this. And Tanaka saying that he's trying to do this and this and this, but again, it's not the code there, I guess, so it's really hard to make everything work. And they basically come to an agreement that yes, they should work together, and Kageyama is right in his complaints. He should just be a little bit nicer about it, because he is basically just yelling at them and using words that probably doesn't sound as respectful as they should be, because he's actually talking to his upperclassmen, and you should be respectful. I mean, this is Japan, so respect is a big deal. And usually Kageyama is very respectful. We see this loads of times, especially when he talks to Asahi. He's very respectful in how he calls him. Like, he actually calls him Asumane-san and not Asahi as everyone else does, and he speaks respectfully and stuff like that. But in this chapter he yells at him, as he did in the last chapter. And as I said in last chapter review, this is not the same Kageyama as from his middle school days, because this Kageyama is not wanting the ideal spiker, he is wanting the spiker to be the ideal version of themselves. So I think the best example we see in this chapter is when Kageyama tosses to Tsukishima and Tsukishima misses, and Kageyama's like, I won't match my tosses to yours, and he keeps setting the tosses higher than he usually does, and eventually Tsukishima spikes this, and it is the highest he has ever spiked, even though it's like out of bounds. But that's just that just goes to show that Kageyama has the ability to draw out the potential of his spikers if he doesn't just do what he has always done and what they want him to do, because if they stay in their comfort zone, they won't grow. And that's just really great. I really love the little scene where after Tsukishima misses the spike, the toss, yeah. We have Yamaguchi in the background just telling Tsukishima to calm down and your heart should be at peace. That was so funny. Like, I laughed and people around me just stare at me like, what the hell is wrong with you? So yeah, that amazing panel. We also have the issue of Kageyama not really using the court to its full potential, so he's using the sides a lot more than the center, which Hinata has a big problem with because he's of course a center spiker. That's not a position, but that's usually where he spikes from. So that pisses Hinata off because of course he wants to be used more. He wants to spike. And this is also very interesting because Kageyama and Hinata are like the only ones who can talk to each other in this very rude manner and still achieve something from it, because both Tanaka and Tsukishima are like, well, we don't really have anything against taking criticism, but we're gonna block you out if you just yell it at us, like, do better doesn't do as good as please do better. Like, there's a difference there. But I think this is really interesting that Kageyama is using just the sides instead of using also the middle, because I think this is what he also did in the second, or was the first, one of the Seijo matches they had, where he also used the sides a lot and forgot to use the middle, and as soon as he switched to using the middle more, they got more points. So I'm thinking that this is like a weird habit of Kageyama's that he needs to break, because this is the second time we see it. So yeah, that's probably really interesting. That's interesting, and I hope to see more of this later. Because I think the two reasons that he has right now for not using the middle is because it's obviously where Tsukishima and Hinata spike from, and as I spoke a lot about in my last review, him and Tsukishima obviously don't have the best relationship, and I think he's very reluctant to use Hinata at the moment because he's also trying to like work with others. And while he can yell as much as he wants at Hinata, and him and Hinata kind of had this weird mind meld where they understand each other, it's probably more important for him to start connecting with the other players, even though he's really bad at it because he's so awkward and yells a lot. Now let's go back to King of the Court Kageyama, because this is a very important plot point. Yeah, it's a very important thing in the story. It always has been, and right now it's more important than ever, because it seemed a few arcs ago, or maybe even just 1 or 2 arcs ago, that Kageyama was getting over his middle school days, that he was slowly growing more detached from it and he was leaving it behind. But as we see, he's not quite there yet, at least until the end of this chapter. And I think, yeah, as I discussed last time, one of the things that has held Kageyama back, and the reason that he has become this goody two-shoes, was because that he detached himself so much from his King of the Court personality, which is what he is in reality. Like, there's a reason he acted the way he did. It wasn't just because he was a mean person, it's because that's how his personality works, even though he was really rude about it. So yeah, detaching himself completely from that was of course also a really bad thing, because then you have the two extremes, which is not good. You should find some sort of compromise. And I think that compromise is what he found in this chapter, and also, like, he finally left that side of him behind. Because as Hinata so smoothly says in this chapter, why do you hate being called the King of the Court? That's such a great nickname, why don't you just embrace that? Like, you're the king, yes, and you can yell at us, yes, but if I don't want to listen, I can just block you out. And then Kageyama can just learn to communicate better. So yeah, it's a compromise. He can be the King of the Court, but if he does it in a respectful manner, it doesn't matter, no one will hate him for it, because usually what he says is he's right. Like, everything he said this chapter and the previous chapter, everything he said was right. No one doubted that. It's just that he speaks rudely. So I think that him being crowned again is a good thing, because this time he isn't crowned because he's a dictator, because he doesn't listen to people, because he's self-centered. This time he's crowned because he has the ability to help others and to make the best of others by using them, for lack of a better word. So I think this is the compromise we're at, and it'll surely help Kageyama in his position as a setter, because it is a very dominating role, and it is him who decides where the toss goes, who spikes, how they spike. Like, everything that happens because of him, usually. So yeah, it's time for him to embrace that King of the Court personality of his, because without it, he can't really grow. One last thing I want to talk about, because I think I said in a couple of chapters ago, it was Also the chapter, I think, where Kageyama was called Little Goody Two Shoes. The dude who told him that he was a Little Goody Two Shoes, whose name I've just forgotten, he also asked Kageyama why he was a setter, and Kageyama said, well, that's kind of just who I am. That's my, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was like, yeah, that's just my position or something like that. And I remember I discussed how interesting I found that, because when we first met Kageyama, he was very passionate about being a setter, and in this chapter, Hinata has this flashback where he remembers Kageyama being so excited and passionate about being a setter, and I think, again, this detachment that he had from being the king of the court has also slowly drained that passion, or he's become uncertain of himself, because, again, as I said, the setter is a very dominant role. The setter is the one who decides where the task goes and all that. So, of course, when detaching himself from being the king of the court who dictates everyone, he's also detaching himself from the position of a setter, which is a very bad thing because he's a very talented setter and he is actually their official setter, so problems. So yeah, basically this chapter just resolves a lot of things that Kageyama really needed closure on, because he hadn't fully gotten it yet, even though it kind of seemed like he did, but that's probably because nothing really triggered it, and now that they are so desperately needing to be better because they can hardly overcome Dateko, and Dateko are not even in the spring tournament. The spring tournament are filled with people who are so strong, like so strong. So of course they need that extra push to like get them at a stage where they can compete with these really powerful schools. But yeah, I think that was it. Apart from Kageyama, there were like the few things with people trying to change some things and do new things, but I discussed that a few chapters back, so let's just, yeah, that's fine. If you liked anything that I had to say in this review, please leave a thumbs up, and you can leave in the comments below what you thought of this chapter and what you thought of this chapter on Kageyama, the old king of the court, closing, and us starting the new chapter of the new king of the court. And yeah, you can subscribe if you like what I'm saying. I also do reviews of One Piece, Boku no Hero Academia, and Ship no Soma. On a side note though, it's getting really late where I live, and since it'll take some time to edit this video and stuff, I probably won't do my Food Wars Ship no Soma review until tomorrow. So yeah, you'll have to wait a long time for that, probably. I'm sorry about that, but it's out late and I have school tomorrow morning, so yeah. Either way, until next time, bye.